Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm Lauren Feldman, your host. Every week, I sit down with 3 business owners to talk about the challenges they're facing. It's the kind of conversation you don't often hear in public. Our panelists address difficult topics like why their business isn't making as much money as they think it should, why their digital marketing isn't working, or why exactly they hired their brother-in-law. Owning a business can be a lonely and isolating pursuit, but at least you'll know that you're not the only one facing these issues. Got a question you'd like us to address? Send it to us and follow us on Twitter at 21_hats or on our website, 21hats.com. This week, we have something a little bit different for you. Instead of our usual therapy session with our regulars, we're coming to you from Palm Springs, California, and EY's annual Strategic Growth Forum. I'm here with one of our regulars, Karen Clark-Cole, CEO of Blink UX. Karen, I think you and I met here at this event. You've been coming for years. Why do you come to this event?
Lauren, we did not meet at this event. I know you like to think that. We met through your former gig at Forbes, where I was writing. However, I do come to this event because I was actually in the program, so Entrepreneur of the Year program for the Pacific Northwest, probably 5 years ago. I was a finalist in the Seattle region. And so when you do that, you get to come to the national event, which is in Palm Springs.
Which you've been doing every year since, I believe.
Once you go, you'll never stop going because it's so incredibly fabulous and lavish and wonderful in every way.
Well, give us some examples. What do you like about this event?
You can ask a waiter for a bottle of champagne at any time and they'll bring it. People don't know.
No one ever told me that.
It's true.
Now I understand why you come back every year.
So honestly, the quality of the people that are here is so incredible. I mean, it's mostly founders, CEOs, leaders in big companies. And so the quality of the conversation while walking to the pool it's outstanding. And, then you add on EY. Generally, every participant here has a host who will help set up meetings for you with anybody that you want who's attending. Everyone gets the guest list. And then there's always probably a handful of talks that I go to, and they're usually the ones that I just sort of bumped into and didn't expect to go to, which are the best, that can be life-changing and really certainly make me think differently about how I'm running my company, and what are other people thinking about or struggling with.
Do you want to ask me why I come to this event?
Yeah. Well, I know that you love the Winning Women program. And I can't imagine anything not to love about it. So
the program is about 12 years or 13 years old now, I think. And I think it grew out of the Entrepreneur of the Year program that you were referring to. I think at a certain point, EY realized there weren't as many women competing in that as they would have liked. Mm-hmm. And they created this leadership program called Winning Women. And as a journalist, I just found it was an incredible way to meet really interesting entrepreneurs who were, established but not that far into their journey. And
it's like EY is doing all the work for you when you're trying to find entrepreneurs. Right?
It's great to find people who've been vetted by somebody, and I know they're legit. And I've gotten so many great stories, contacts, sources out of it. It's been really helpful to me, and I come back. I would come to this event every year just for that. I didn't even know about the champagne. This year, with the podcast, it's such a great opportunity. You and I, knowing that we were both going to be here, we decided to line up interviews. And what we're going to do now is sit down one by one with 4 of these winning women. Some of them, most of them are alums who've won in the past, one who's just won this year. And we're going to hear a little bit about their journeys.
It's fabulous. And we should say that we're in a very lavish room.
Where we can't close the doors, because if we do, we might lock ourselves in. Thank you for taking time away from the pool and the champagne to join me with this. Let's start doing the interviews. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. Sherry Deutschman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm just delighted to be with you.
We really want to talk about all aspects of how you built LetterLogic and your really impressive entrepreneurial journey. But to start, I'd like to read something from your book. You've written a terrific book that I recommend. It's called Lunch with Lucy. In it, you write, I was a 42-year-old single mom with a high school education and meager savings when I cashed in my 401k and took a risk. I sold my personal belongings in a yard sale that yielded just enough cash to start a company, Letter Logic, in my basement, which defied every single rule of what makes a sure bet in business. That business grew debt-free to a $40 million enterprise. Give us a quick version of how you wound up starting your own business.
I was working for a company in the same industry, and that was printing and mailing hospital bills. I was responsible for the sales. I was VP of sales, and we just screwed up everything we touched. So I would sell a new account and lose an account, and it was a constant. And just observing one day, I realized that all of our problems were simple human error, and the human error was because nobody cared, and nobody cared because nobody cared about them. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And so I went to talk to my boss about what we could do to change to affect the morale and change the culture of the company, and how that might affect the results. And he patted my hand and told me I didn't know anything about business. And he said, just go sell another account. So I did. Except this time it wasn't for his company, it was for mine.
Unlike a lot of books about culture, you don't just talk about treating people well, which we all agree you should treat people well, but you kind of connect the dots between treating people well and having a profitable business.
Well, it seemed to me it was absolutely a direct line between behavior and profitability. And so I thought if all the employees understood exactly how we made money and their part in helping us make money, that they would behave differently. And they did. So I set out to make sure that all of their basic needs were taken care of, so that when they were at work, they would not be worried about whether or not their lights were going to be on when they got home, or whether or not their health insurance would cover an illness. I just, from day one, paid for 100% of everybody's medical, dental, disability, and life insurance. From day one.
How did you afford to do that on day one?
I just never considered not being able to afford it.
It was a little bit less expensive back then.
And how many employees did you have right out of the gate?
2. And then we grew to 60 at one time and then back down to 50. And in the beginning, we covered even their family's insurance. And we did that for the first 5 years. So it was a whole family plan. And then we were challenged by a single employee who said, it's not fair that I cost the company this much, and she has 5 kids and she costs the company this much, and so I want the difference. Yeah. So, we had to equalize it by paying just for the employee. But we also let them bring their kids and their pets to work, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but if you're a single mom and the kid has a wellness visit, you have to take them to school first, leave work, go to pick them up, to take them to their doctor's visit, take them back to school, come back to work. You get nothing done. Or if the kid has a runny nose, they can't go to daycare, just bring them to work. And we all pitched in and helped take care of the kids so that the parents could be at work with us. And the most important thing we did, the most game-changing thing, was taking 10% of the profit every month, splitting it evenly, so that the CFO and the janitor got exactly the same dollar amount, letting them know that they were just as important as everybody else in the company in the final results.
And I read that before you do that, you show them how the company's doing, that you show them the financials once a month and
Yes.
then distribute the profit?
So every month we brought everybody together in one room and went over the financials, and so they could see top line and all our expenses in between and bottom line, and then we talked about the results.
And so what would happen for your employees? Do they understand it right away? Were they interested, all of them? I mean, in my experience, it sometimes terrifies employees if they see really what's going on, or it's too much information, it's overwhelming. And then how do they feel when there wasn't a profit?
I think for most employees, just the high level was enough. There were some employees, specifically the sales guys, who really wanted to see more. And so in those cases, I would allow them to come to my office, pull up a chair right next to me, we'd get right into our NetSuite and say, have at it. You can go anywhere except to see people's salaries. And let them see exactly to the penny, and actually to the fraction of a cent, our costs. And that changed their behavior in regards going after the right kind of account and selling at the right price, because they understood exactly what our costs were. And yeah, it took us a couple of years to become profitable. I think 18 months when we were first profitable, and nonstop profitable until about 3 years before I sold the company. I was investing heavily into technology and growing.
In order to run the business?
Yes, and actually just building out the e-commerce so that I would no longer be printing and mailing patient statements, but sending the statements to patients electronically and facilitating payments for them electronically. So I was spending millions of dollars doing that and not really minding our core, what's the word? What we were good at.
Yeah.
And so in so doing, we had several months of declining profits. And so I would have to stand in front of the entire company every month and say, well,
Not 60 people at that point?
No, yes, at that point it was 63 people, I think. And to tell them, our profits were down this month. It'd gone from $7 to $17 to $700, and then it started going back down to $19 and then to $6, which is not even going to buy you a 6-pack of beer, right? Yeah. And just to tell them, I'm sorry, we weren't profitable, and then 2 months back to back of losses. And for me to stand up and say there's no profit share because we didn't make a profit.
Did you feel it was your fault?
Oh, it was my fault. Absolutely, it was my fault.
How so?
I was chasing the shiny object, and I hired an outside consultant who ends up being, one of the best things that ever happened to me, and a lifelong friend, who just challenged me to go back to our core strengths and to quit trying to be something I wasn't and make the company something it wasn't. And the reason you've grown so fast, and at that time, we were on the Inc. 5000 list for 10 straight years. And the reason you've grown so fast is because you're so good at this. You're the best at this. You're the undisputed best at this. Even your competitors say you are. And now you're saying that's not good enough. I want to chase them down a rabbit hole. So,
but did you do that because you were worried about the times changing and everything becoming more digital and you needed to go there?
Yes, and somewhat fear of missing out. And my sales team saying, we lost this account because we weren't able to do that, and you've got to do this. And just the fear. It was totally acting out of fear. And up until that time, we had been partnering with other companies that could provide that part, and we just had a tiny revenue share. And that was really the right solution. Yeah. And so we went back to that. So we went back to that, and we quadrupled EBITDA over the next 18 months.
So you just cut off all that money you had invested and just said, that's a loss?
Sorry. And we had just hired all these people to help us build out the technology, and we had to tell them, if you want to stay with us, we'll find something for you to do, but we're not doing that sexy work you thought we were doing.
Did they say?
Some stayed, a few left, some were contract workers that we had brought in and they left. So we right-sized back to 51, 52 people and really got back to being.
How hard was that transition for everyone in the company when you had to do the right sizing and make the announcements?
Such a sigh of relief for everybody. Because those people that we had hired to do that work, we were hiring them so quickly that we couldn't train them, we couldn't integrate them into our culture. There was no place for them to sit, so we had to do a build out to add more office space for them and to try to be cool enough for these techies that were coming in instead of being a manufacturing concern. And I was sending mixed signals, being, I think, a pretty bad leader at that time. And just chasing, running all over the place. And so I think that there was a huge sigh of relief for everybody, including those people we'd brought in.
So what was the moment that you hired that consultant? What came into your head that said you should do that and something's not working because you were losing money?
Losing money and having to tell them there was no profit because of my poor decisions. Yeah. So he came in, and for the first week he said, "This is the best run company I've ever seen, and I don't know that you have a problem that we can't fix pretty quickly." And then the second week he said, "Oh, you have a huge problem, and it's this, and you know what to do, and you know how to fix it." And it was all on me, And so I made the hard decisions and made the hard choices and got us back in profitability.
Sherry, you described talking to your bosses at the job you had before you started your own company, and you told them what they were doing wrong and what you thought they could do better. And your boss said to you, patted you on your hand and said, "You don't know anything about running a business." To some extent, they weren't wrong about that,
Oh, they were
right?
absolutely right. I didn't.
And then you figured it all out on your own, and all these steps you took. It's from opening your books to the way you rewarded your employees. Was there anything guiding you on that up until the point where you hired a consultant, or were you just kind of figuring out what made sense to you on your own?
I think it was a combination of just common sense and also innate empathy.
It's not that common, though.
It's
Well,
not common.
it's listening to your intuition, and I think that's a strength of a woman leader.
Well, simple human kindness, too. I was just listening to the CEO of Cisco, who they've just been named the best company in the world to work for. And he talked about the importance of that, of just realizing that people are just human beings that want to be heard and want to be treated like humans. And I employed that trait that I have to serve the company.
We're having this conversation at EY's annual Strategic Growth Forum. You've come to this event for many years. I met you here because of your involvement in the Winning Women program. Tell us how you got involved and what the program meant for you.
My company culture was so unique that we started getting a lot of press fairly early on, and somehow EY heard about me and invited me to apply for the program. I did. When they told me I'd won, that was 2009. I figured it was just like any other award thing. You go to fancy dinner, which you pay for, and then they give you a little trophy, and that was it. It's not like that at all. It is really a commitment to helping the women with any resource they need to grow their businesses.
Well, not in investing in the business, though.
Oh, not investing in the
Not
business.
that kind of resource.
No, not that kind, but connections. Invaluable connections, and it really credentialized me. It gave me credibility in a way that I could never have achieved on my own, and introduced me to the network of the other winning women, but all the brilliance of EY globally. They helped me several times with sales tax nexus issues and other things. Didn't charge me a dime, but helped me conquer pretty insurmountable problems at the time. And then the press that I received as a result of the EY Winning Women program has been incredible. I mean, that's how I met you. And as a result, I was featured in the New York Times. I've had Forbes talk about me and Success and Business Leaders and Inc. and Entrepreneur. None of that would have happened without the Winning Women program.
So we've heard this really impressive story about how you built this really special company and the success you had. Why did you decide to sell the business?
Two things. We had gone through that phase of quadrupling EBITDA in 18 months. And so the graph of our growth for the first time, the bottom line was outgrowing the top line. And that on paper was exactly the right time to sell a company, when you would get the highest multiple. And that coincided with my teenage granddaughter coming to live with me. So trying to raise a 13-year-old and working 60 hours a week didn't look like a good decision. So it's like it was in the stars.
You had a buyer?
Yes, had a buyer, had a lot of interest, and had multiple offers, and chose one.
So people had been approaching you about buying it, even before you
Yes, for many
went
years.
looking.
Mm-hmm.
And did the sale work out the way you hoped it would?
Yes and no. Financially, it was a tremendous success. What pains me most is how the culture changed after that. The first thing the buyers did was do away with the profit share. Although in the dog and pony shows and all the negotiations, they had indicated that they loved the culture and they loved the profit share, and they saw how it affected the bottom line, and not realizing it was just lip service.
Did you have a role in the new company?
I didn't. I exited.
Okay.
It was an all-cash deal, and I invested in the new entity they created, and then got a board seat with that investment. And then it was too painful for me. After 6 months, I just said, please, I want out of this. And so I was totally out. Got my investment back. And
did some of the employees leave?
Yes. So today we're 3 years after the sale, and of those 51 employees we had at the time, I think only 12 are still there.
Wow.
Oh.
They weren't, 38 mediocre employees. They were cream of the crop employees.
And so have they been able to maintain the profitability of the company without those people?
I'm not sure. I think, there's been 2 or 3 roll-ups since then. So I sold a $40 million company now to probably a $250 million company, has emerged from lots of roll-ups. So I have no idea about their profitability.
Did you feel you were as prepared as you should have been to sell the business? Did you know what you needed to know?
Probably not. I learned a lot in the process, and actually getting the company ready to sell was the most fun I ever had the whole time I was running the business.
How so?
Loved it. We had a brilliant broker who first did a free valuation for us and then coached us on having mini valuations. And so every Monday and every Thursday, my leadership team had a mini valuation. And we made decisions based on valuation for the first time. And so we could see, you think that your company value wouldn't change from a Thursday to a Monday, but if you add a big account or you lose an account in that time space, it can change a lot if you're looking at a 7 or 8 or 10 multiple. So it just changed our behavior, and we were working as a really tight team.
And you did that for how long? A year?
About a year and a half.
Can I just ask you, when you're doing your monthly reporting to the employees and doing the profit sharing, how did you choose monthly versus quarterly? It seems more common to me.
It's really hard to tie your behavior and your actions to something if it's quarterly or annually. But monthly, if we brought everybody together and said, look, we made a ton of money this month, and this is why, you know why. It was like a Swiss watch. Everything happened exactly as it should have. Then there was a direct correlation between their behavior and the profit.
And is that how you were, you've talked about being able to measure profit by treating your employees well. Is that how you did that?
Yeah, I think mostly it was seeing their dedication to the company and retention of employees. So Nashville is one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S. For the last 3 or 4 years, we've had over 1,000 open IT jobs every day. And so our IT workers were highly sought after. They stayed with us and stayed loyal because of the culture that we created.
Looking back, are there things that you would do differently if you had it to do over again in terms of the sale?
Yeah.
What would you do differently?
I would have coached the leadership team about how to handle the integration with a newer, bigger leadership team, and how to, what I thought naively was that we were going to infect the larger company that was swallowing us up, that we were going to inculcate our culture into them. And I think we could have done that if I had realized that I needed to train the team on courage and sticking to their convictions. And I think I failed in choosing a bad leader, and not a bad leader, but somebody who wasn't really equipped to withstand
or somebody who could do your role, right?
Yes.
Although that was going to be hard anyway. I mean, once they got rid of profit sharing,
But the right person would have stood up for that and
see.
would have gone to the board and said, no, this is why we're profitable. These other companies that you're acquiring, they're not profitable. They've got tons of debt, and they've got 3 times the employees we have with the same revenue. I wish that I had taught them to take that tack and to really to infect the other company.
What are you doing now?
Too much. The first thing I did was start a little angel investment firm to invest in women-owned businesses because women only get like less than 2% of the private equity in venture capital. And I wrote a book, Lunch with Lucy, which will be out. It's available right now on Amazon, but it'll be out on bookstore near you on March 10th.
So there's a lovely quote at the beginning that you put in by Mother Teresa. Can you tell me about that? Is that an old favorite of yours?
Yes. That might make me cry, but she says there is more hunger in this world for love and appreciation than for bread. And when you think about how many people in the world are starving, literally don't have enough food, and more people suffering from lack of love and appreciation.
Yeah.
So you started the investment firm.
Yes.
But don't you have a business now as well?
Yes, I've started a company, Brain Trust, which is a peer-to-peer membership for women-owned businesses to help them get to the crucial $1 million mark. Less than 2% of women-owned businesses, I think there's almost 12 million of us now in the U.S., less than 2% of us get to the $1 million mark, which means...
and beyond that.
Yes, right. I think the average is like $88,000 in annual receipts. You're not going to ever build personal wealth or financial independence when your total cash receipts are $88,000. And you're not going to change the lives of your family at that rate. And you're not going to be able to be an influencer in the community to change the world. So helping women get to $250,000, at that point they can start paying themselves a little better. By the time they get to $1 million, they're making a decent salary. They have several people working for them that are working in the business, so they can work on the business. At that point, they are more bankable, so they can get a line of credit to grow the business. They can attract investors, and importantly, they can join organizations like the Women's Presidents Organization and EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. But until you get there, you can't be a member. And I had been lucky enough to be in WPO and EO and found how critically important they were to me. And so I started this organization for all those people who don't qualify, all the women who don't qualify. I'm going to help you get there. We're going to help you get there so you can move on and go from $1 million to 10 million.
That's awesome.
Sherry Deutschman, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Lori Torres, welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. Really appreciate your stopping by to talk about parcel pending. Why don't we start? Tell us what the company does first.
Great. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm thrilled to be part of it. And Parcel Pending, we have electronic smart lockers. So we manage packages. We're a package management solution company. And so our electronic lockers envision a bank of lockers that have a keypad where a courier, UPS, FedEx, can go to the touchscreen. Once they find your name in the system, they then put a package into the locker, close the locker door, and now it sends you a text or an email that says you have a parcel pending.
And it's a physical locker.
It's a physical locker. Imagine you're at work and you have personal items delivered. And so instead of having it stolen off your front porch at home, instead you can have it shipped to your office, but it goes straight into the locker at your office building. Now you can go on your way home, grab your package, and off you go, and you have not lost your package.
And do they vary in sizes that you can rent, I assume?
That's correct.
Okay.
Small, medium, large, extra large.
Oh,
and,
very good.
different size packages, lockers for the packages. And we are now in multifamily, we're in commercial, we're in grocery, retail, universities, and commercial office buildings. We even have our lockers in corporate headquarters, such as UPS. All their employee packages go through our lockers at their headquarters. So
when
all
you
different
say
use cases.
multifamily, do you mean like an apartment building? Okay.
Yes, apartment buildings.
Can you tell us how big the business is now?
Sure. We've grown the company over the last 5 years. We're now in 48 states and Canada. We take 1.6 million packages a month. We're expecting to take 3 million from Black Friday to Christmas this year.
Oh my God.
So it will be a crazy wild ride. Yes, a lot of
That's a
packages
lot.
go. It's a lot. And we have over 200 employees.
Wow. So where did the idea for the company come from? How did you end up starting it?
Yeah, I was in real estate my whole career, and I was working for a large company, a developer in Orange County, California. And we had 44,000 apartment units, and I was the senior vice president overseeing the operations of those 44,000 units. And I kept going to the properties, and they would say to me, Lori, we have such a package problem. We need more head count, and we need bigger package rooms. And I thought, no way. We're not going to add head count. That's going to kill on the margin, and we're not going to get bigger package rooms because it just doesn't make sense. So I knew there had to be a way to take technology and marry it to something, some type of a box system so it could be self-service. The other benefit to parcel pending lockers is that you can get your package in the evening on your time. We have people pick up packages at 2 a.m., 4 a.m.
Can people share lockers?
It's not a one-for-one, so it just depends on when your package comes today. Your locker might be on the left upper hand side of a small locker.
Oh, wow.
And tomorrow you might get a package over on the right-hand bottom that's a large locker. So it's not your own designated locker. It's based on when you have a package. So if you don't get a package but once every 5 days, you only have a locker used once every 5 days.
And you pay per package?
No, there's different pricing models. We actually sell the lockers to the landlords and owners, and they pay a monthly software and service fee. And then some models, we give them the lockers, and then the end user pays a monthly fee. in the different verticals that we're in, there are different models, whether it's a subscription model, a lease model, or a purchase model.
And how long or how many years did it take you to figure out these different models?
I just thought, this is going to be genius. At one point, I actually thought we will never sell another locker, and we will only give lockers away and charge this fee, and the residents will pay. Well, the industry said, no, we don't want to nickel and dime our residents. We want this as an amenity. And so they said, we'll pay for it. And so I really thought that it would be, 80% would be the subscription model and 20% would be the purchase. And it was the opposite. And so...
And how many years did it take to figure that out? Was this sort of long,
pretty early.
gradual? Okay.
No, I mean, look, we've only been in business 6 years now, and so we've had to figure out a lot very
wow,
fast.
You've grown fast.
We've grown really fast, yeah.
Was anybody else doing this when you started?
When I started, no, and then since I started, there's been a few competitors, and I'm sure you've heard of those guys called Amazon. They're a big competitor now, and I will say...
With the same sort of product?
Same product, yes, and they came into multifamily because they want to distribute more packages.
They're not just in Whole Foods?
They're not just in Whole Foods anymore. They're in universities, they're in commercial office buildings, they're in retail even. And the reason for that is they just want to distribute more stuff faster. Yeah. But their model's completely different. They're not doing it for a P&L purpose. And so it's tough because competing against them when they're not out to make money, their prices can be significantly less than ours. But we have a value proposition of what makes us different. But I will tell you that competing with Amazon, some entrepreneurs, like I've heard people say, we went out of business because we couldn't compete with them. And for me, I'm like, bring it on. This has been the greatest challenge. It's made us a better company. It's made us smarter and think better and be more on our feet. So, I'll take it.
That's great to hear.
But it must have squeezed your margins too, didn't it?
It has squeezed in some areas, yes, for sure. And then the tariffs have certainly squeezed margins because we manufacture in China. So we've had our challenges. It's not been a walk in the park by any means.
Oh, that's interesting. How did you deal with the tariffs?
You deal with them. Do you have a choice? So we're actually moving our manufacturing out of the country. And and so this year we'll start manufacturing still offshore, but in a different country.
Vietnam?
Yeah, Vietnam.
Interesting.
Yep.
With that kind of fast growth and competing with Amazon, did you have to raise capital to build the business?
So I bootstrapped my way for the first year or so, and then I did an angel round of about $1.5 million. And then I had a strategic investor we did a $15 million round. And the strategic was interesting because we'd set it up in some different tranches. And we ended up, after the first year of that deal, going back and renegotiating it. And it became just a revolving line of credit. And I only used $6 million of the $15 million before selling the company. So I recently just sold the company in January to a French company, to Neopost. Now they've changed the name to Quadient now. They've been in the business since 1934 of mail. So probably every mailroom you go into, it either has equipment from Neopost or from Pitney Bowes. And so the two were competitors. And but big business, but somewhat declining because obviously people aren't sending mail anymore. And so the locker strategy made a lot of sense for them, and it was in alignment with their business and the other business verticals that they have and products that they have. And so they already had lockers in Japan and in France, but they just really couldn't bust into the United States. And so, you know what I say, if you can't beat them, buy them.
Yeah. And were their locker system in Europe was similar to yours, or the?
Yeah, it was similar. Yeah, similar technology.
Had you been thinking about selling the business?
It's a great question because, of course, I had been thinking about selling the business from the day I started the business. But I will tell you, and I think it's really important, that I never did it to make money. And so while I've had a wonderful outcome, it was never my goal, like, ooh, I can't wait, I'm going to be rich. Not at all. I was solving a problem. I saw this, I'm a solution finder, and I just looked for, because what the real estate business I was in, when you're in property management and property operations, all you do all day long is solve problems. And when I saw this problem, I knew I could solve it. And so, but yes, once I started planning for the business and writing my 3-year plan, before I even put a name to the company or spent $1, I wrote a 3-year plan. And so I always thought I'd exit in probably 7 years. And so we were just starting.
You really are a planner.
Yeah, I really am. And we really were starting to just interview investment bankers, like who were we going to use? We were going to have our first audit because we didn't even have a formal audit yet. And so we were just in that process, and they came along, and it was a crazy fast deal. I met them December 3rd in my office. We got a letter of intent December 21st, and we closed on January 23rd.
Holy moly!
Yeah, it was a 32-day deal. And they said, we'll do light due diligence. No. EY was involved. And so let me tell you, it was
On your
not
side or
light
their side?
on their side. And it was not light due diligence. The banker said,
But they went that fast?
We went fast. You know what's interesting about that? I think you set a precedence. I think it set a precedence for the new owners that they think that we can always work at this pace, which we do. We work at an insane pace. But they said, we've never seen a company fill a data room as fast as you guys filled the data room. Because we worked day and night, and it was over the holidays. So December 17th, or 21st actually was the letter of intent. Think about that. The office was pretty empty, and people were off because of holidays, and we just worked day and night, weekend after weekend. It was crazy.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope you don't mind saying, I read on the internet that you had a very successful outcome. You sold the business for $100 million.
Yeah, it was over $100 million. Yeah, I don't like to say it out loud, actually, but it was very public because a public company bought us, so yeah.
Was that a difficult negotiation, or did they come knowing what they wanted to do?
They were very clear on what they wanted, and they had a clear agenda, and I had a clear agenda, and I wasn't planning to sell the company. I thought we were 2 years out, and our revenues weren't far enough along, and our new business verticals that I was trying to achieve hadn't gotten to where they were. And so, but I said, look, in order to sell it, this is the price, and I just stayed firm on it.
And you stuck to it.
I stuck to it, yeah, and they stuck to it as well. They're great people. They are such wonderful people to work with. I've really enjoyed everyone at the company.
And you're staying with the
Yeah,
company
I'm
at
there.
least so far.
Yeah.
For
yes.
how long?
Well, I'm under contract for a couple of years.
Did you sell 100%?
I did.
So you're an employee.
I am an employee again. But here's the funny thing. I was in corporate America my whole career, 30 years. So I really thought I'd probably be the best person to be acquired by a large corporation because I could deal with corporate America.
Right.
Is it as much fun? Maybe I would not admit that it's as much fun as I used to have been.
Do you get to go to France more often now?
I have yet to be. I have yet to go to France.
Oh,
I have no
that's
invitation
terrible.
to France yet.
Oh.
So no, I have not. But I'm sure the day will come. I have too much to do. We have huge growth goals, and so I don't have time to go to France because we are running still with our hair on fire.
And so what's your role in the new organization?
I'm still the CEO of Parcel Pending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they kept it separate.
Yes.
I see. So you're running the U.S. part of it then? Is that
U.S.
right?
and Canada,
Okay.
yes.
But do you have a lot more capital to spend now?
You know what? It is really nice to have a big backing of $1 billion company.
Yeah.
Very nice. And so we're scaling it much faster than what we were able to do, and making the investment back into the company now. So yeah, it's a wild time. It's fun though.
Giving Amazon a run for their money?
Oh, for sure. I think they know us for sure. Yeah, but they're going to do. Amazon is Amazon. They can make a decision to just give away free lockers. And if they do that'll be a problem for us. But also, they're not delivering on their promise and their service, and so not everyone's elated with them. I just had a client meeting in Dallas on Monday, and the client said, "I can't wait to get these lockers out of here," which were Amazon lockers. But you're going to have good and bad. I'm sure people that say that about us.
We're having this conversation at EY's annual Strategic Growth Forum. You've been here many times because you've been part of the Winning Women program. Tell us about how did you get involved with that, and what did it mean for you?
It has been a game changer for me. And so I was in the class of 2017. I have met amazing people. I have friends for life. I mean, I have people that are now, I have the group of gals that we travel together. We talk, we also have, funny enough, 3 of us all sold our companies this past year, and all 3 of us are struggling somewhat in the new world just because there's big goals. When a new company comes in and buys you, they want to take it to a whole new level. And we were already growing at this crazy level. And so it's challenging, but it's nice to have some partners in crime and to, talk through it, other CEOs, because you can't have that conversation with your employees. And so it's nice to have other CEOs. And that's what it's done for me, is it's created this network of people to be able to, I can call and reach out.
So you've forgiven EY for the due diligence they did on you?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny that you asked me that, but yes, I had a softer spot in my heart because of it. So I didn't want to wring their necks as much. I mean, there were 3 times during the deal that the deal almost died, but I had leverage. And so I said, look, I was not in a hurry to sell. And so there were 3 different times where I if we need to put this on hold and pause and go clean up what you think is an issue, well, let's wait 6 months. And they were motivated to make the sale happen. And so
Suddenly the problem went away.
EY did cause a few pain points for us, I will tell you.
Did you learn anything through that process that you think others could benefit from?
Oh my gosh, I learned from every process. I mean, in the Winning Women program, if the women that take advantage and really embrace the program get so much out of it, and the women that don't. They don't show up, they don't participate, and they're so missing out. And then selling the company, of course. I mean, you especially doing it in 32 days, you just don't get an experience like that. I mean, there was so much I didn't know, and so much that I had to make, a ton of phone calls and get advisors in, and what do you think about this? And oh my gosh, I'm not sure what direction this is. And then what happens is when you're going that fast and you're so tired because you work so many hours, you simply start to forget things. You're like, wait, did we negotiate that? Did we get that covered?
But you also can't run the business the same way when you're going through something like that.
You can't, and I will tell you, it has been a very, the acquisition has not hurt, I wouldn't say, but I'll say it has been a challenge for parcel pending for this year. And I finally feel now after 10 months, we're finally, like, the dust has settled and we've got our arms back around this beast and we can go and take this next trajectory. But it really set us back because there's this get to know you, and there's so many new processes and new reporting, and it's been a challenging year for sure. I say it's been the hardest year ever, but I think that maybe it's like having a baby and you forget the pain, because every year when growing my company, it was really hard, and I had an interview and I would say, gosh, it's so hard, and I don't even know what that means. Like, I can't articulate how challenging it is.
Did your employees know that you were going through that?
Well, funny enough, yes and no. There was a small group that were under the tent, about 6 of us. And for the beginning, no. My family didn't even know. I couldn't even tell my family in the beginning. And that was pretty brutal because...
Is this because your family is particularly untrustworthy, or...?
No, my family... No, I know you're right. You are. Part of it was when I was growing the company, I ended up hiring a lot of people there's this web of a lot of connections. So my son knows this guy who works at my company, and this guy knows this guy who knows my son, or my other son. They're best friends, and she works here. And so there were all these and my ex-husband's best friend was an investor in the company. And so there were all of these interconnections that I felt I couldn't tell the family until we were ready, and we couldn't announce it because it was a public company. But I had to go to the shareholders because it was such a short window. I couldn't get a vote in time. I mean, there were a lot of challenges that happened with that quick of a sale. And so I had to tell my family the day before I told the shareholders, because I knew that the shareholders that knew my husband were going to reach out.
You didn't even tell your husband?
Well, ex-husband, we were married at the time, but I still had to tell him.
What was the reaction from your employees?
Well, I think it was a mixed, actually. I mean, we had a vision, and we were clear on what our purpose was, and we were clear on what we were trying to accomplish. And then the game changes, and it creates fear, because the first thing that happens when you sell a company, people say, what's in it for me? And what's going to happen to me? And oh my gosh, are they going to keep me around? And it's not like a company that comes in and buys you has all these people in their back pockets, but you hear of all the horror stories that people, lose out on opportunities and things change. And so, but it was funny because I have an all-hands meeting with all employees once a month, and we talk about what's going on in the organization and, talk about different things. And when I announced that we were selling, or that we'd sold the day that it was closing, I asked the team to raise their hand if they thought we were going through a sale, and half the room said yes.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we're too transparent of a company, and then all of a sudden we're doors closed and we're off-site meetings, and it was just it was not our behavior. Yeah, they knew something was up.
Last question. You referred before to how fast you were already growing, and then the challenge of being bought by a much larger public company and having to grow even faster. What are you doing to grow even faster, and what are the challenges that you're facing?
You want me to give you my secret sauce? I can't, because Amazon could be listening, or another competitor. But we have had significant growth in the prior years. For the first 5 years, we had 70% year-over-year growth every year, and it was just insane. And now
you have to do it even faster.
Now we have to do it faster.
So without telling us what it is, do you have a secret sauce? Is it like that?
Well, I think that every company has a secret sauce. And
really?
What makes some companies... Well, I do. I mean, what makes some companies...
Do you have a secret sauce, Karen?
I don't know. I got to think about that.
I think you have to ask yourself what makes a company successful, and why are not other companies that have a good product and a good service, why aren't they as successful?
Sure.
And I think it's about the vision of where you're going. It's absolutely about the people. I mean, look.
Yeah, I read about employee appreciation.
Yeah, because I couldn't have done any of this without the team. I won the regional EY, and it felt wrong for me to take that that win, it was not me, it's the team that did it. And I could never have done it without the team. And I did. Every single person in my company benefited from the sale. And so I wanted to show my gratitude. I had stock options, but no one had vested. We hadn't been in business long enough to vest. So we vested a lot. But everybody got something.
That's awesome.
Lori Torres, thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you sharing the story.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Diana Lee, thanks so much for joining us on the 21 Hats podcast. We'd love to hear a little bit about Constellation Agency, the business that you've built. Give us a sense of what you do and how far along you are now.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me today. So I am the CEO and co-founder of Constellation Agency. Constellation started about 3.5 years ago. We're an ad tech company. Originally, we started as a digital media company, actually running social search display advertising. Very quickly, we realized we couldn't scale because the amount of customers that were coming in. And so we invented and patent pending our ad technology that basically produces ads within minutes time for those platforms.
And how far along have you gotten? How big is the company now?
Oh, wow. So 3.5 years. We're projected to hit right now 20 million in sales by December,
Great.
right there. Next year, we're hoping that we could make close to 40 million because we've doubled, tripled year-over-year growth. First year, we're at 4 million. Second year, 10 million. And now
Wow.
20 million.
Most amazing of all, I believe you're profitable doing that.
Yes, so we've been
And self-funded?
profitable. We've been self-funded as well. So yeah, so it has been a very painful journey because it is not easy to
Fast.
remain self-funded, but it was a desire that I had right from the beginning.
And the technology idea, where did that come from?
So it's interesting because I'm 50 years old, so I am not the person that said, I want to start developing now. It wasn't even in any of the structures of what we were looking at. Really, when it came around was I couldn't have enough manpower to produce the assets that we were actually getting. And at the end, I looked for outside sources to actually make the ads to help us.
Can you just stop for a minute and talk about what you mean by assets? So are people sending you images or how does that work?
Sure. So when you go on Facebook and you go on Instagram, and I'm just going to use them as an example, it takes a good 30 to 45 minutes to actually make an ad on those platforms.
Okay.
By the time that you actually have the ad ready, like the design of the ad ready, and now you got to actually
We're
import it.
talking about a banner ad on the top of the page maybe or the side?
No, so we're talking Facebook, so
Yeah.
social, right,
Yeah.
for example.
Okay.
Those platforms were invented by a genius, Mark Zuckerberg. But the platform was made by a developer. It wasn't made by an advertiser. So the platform thinks like a user, right? So it's great if you want to like something and you want to basically share the content, you want to view it with your friends and family. But if you're an advertiser and you need to go on Ads Manager that is actually a part of Facebook and Instagram, it's really hard to manage that situation. We have so many brands that we represent. We have Audi, we have Volkswagen, we have Jaguar, we have Land Rover. Everybody has brand compliance, right? And everybody's got different fonts and different colors and different tones. The problem is this platform that was made by Facebook and Instagram doesn't support all the different functions that you actually need to do in order to launch a brand compliant ad. So it takes manpower to do all that work. The problem is if you're going to screenshot every single ad that you are doing in that platform, send it to legal, send it to compliance, for them to send it back, then you got to edit it. Our platform basically does all of those compliance situations within seconds time. PDFs it, you can send it to legal, you can send it to compliance. It's got a full ad library that's brand compliant already.
So you realized this opportunity existed because it was a problem that you were confronting. How did you come to the conclusion that you could solve the problem with technology?
We went to India and we're like, okay, maybe we can get people in India to do it, and realized there's a language barrier, we can't do it that way. Then I hired high school students. I mean, this is how funny it was, right? I was desperate. I'm like, okay, I'm going to hire high school students because at least they know the computer. They're really efficient. And they said, Dan, I hate my job. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm paying you $400 a week? You know, what do you mean you hate your job? Listen, I am just cutting and pasting all day. At the end, I want more from my life than just cutting, pasting, screen shooting things. So I thought, okay, this is not something that's going to really compel anybody to stay at our company. I got to find a different solution. So one day, it was really funny, I asked my co-founder, I said, get up. And he's like, where are we going? And he said, we're going to GitHub. And he's like, what? And we were in a WeWork building, and GitHub was our neighbor.
This is in New York, right?
This is in New York City. Basically, it's a development company, and they're probably one of the biggest and largest actually out there. And I walked in, and I looked at all their developers, and I said, guess what? I need some developers, and I need you to help me find some. And I think they thought I was crazy, but they were so nice. They said, okay, so we have some recommendations of people that would actually help you out.
You explained the problem.
Yep,
Yeah, okay.
explained the whole problem. They gave me some names. And one of the names was this person by the name of Vinny. And so Vinny was previously a senior vice president at Big Spaceship, which is a huge ad tech brand in New York City. So, and he started his own development consulting company. And I thought, this is great. I'll ask Vinny what to do. So hired Vinny to consult. And he said to me, after he heard about everything that we're doing, he said, the guy you want is Noman from RGA. So RGA is another huge ad tech company. But he's been there over 10 years, Diana, and you're never going to get him. And of course, you know, when anybody
Then
says,
you're going to get him, yeah.
I was like, I will get him, right? So call Noman, he comes to the office, meets with me and our co-founder, and I'm pitching so hard, right? And he looks at me and he goes, you know, you have a good idea, but I'm not leaving. So I said, okay, well, why don't you think about it, right? There's a lot of things that's going to happen, and, you know, and I want you to think about what we're proposing, so just go home, think about it. So about a week later, I reached back out. And he's like, you know, Diana, you're a really nice person. I think you've got a great idea, but I'm not leaving RGA. I've been here over 10 plus years, and I'm just not going. And I said, all right, so just meet me for dinner and just hear me out.
And what were you thinking at that moment? Were you sort of on the fly, or did you think, if he says no, I'm going to take him for dinner and I have this big plan?
No, I mean, I really thought I'm going to convince him to come over. I mean, I really thought that he was the right person, and I was going to do everything to recruit him. So I took him out to dinner. And I remember I was sitting there and pitching again, pitching hard. And he looks at me and he goes, Diana, you know, really, I'm just not interested at this time. You know, you're too small, startup, and I'm not going to do it. And, I probably shouldn't have said it, but I did. I looked at him and I said, you're making the stupidest mistake of your life. That's what I said. You are making the stupidest, dumbest mistake of your life. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, nobody's going to ever walk into your life and offer you the deal that I just gave you. No one. And 10 years from now, you'll still be at RGA making maybe a 2% raise or a 4% raise year over year. And at the end, you're going to see us blow up and you're going to regret this opportunity. So I'm going to ask you again to rethink the
I love
decision.
your confidence.
And he said, okay, this is what I'll do. I said, what do you want to do? He goes, how about I watch you guys for a little bit? I said, actually, I kind of like that idea. I said, why don't you come to some of our meetings? And in a few months, if you really don't want to do it, what loss do you really have? Just watch my team, watch what's coming in, watch what we're selling, watch our revenue numbers. I'm going to give you access to all of it, fully transparent.
But at that point, you had no platform. You were doing it the cut and paste way.
We were still,
right. Okay.
We had actually made one platform, me and my co-founder, by ourselves with an outside development company, and it was messed up. And this is when we had realized we need somebody that can speak that language, right, because neither one of us understood developers. They were a strange breed to us, and so we didn't understand the language, how they worked. I said, watch us for a little bit, and so he did. So what I then did was every client meeting I had, which we had a ton back then, right? And they were with major companies. I contacted Noman. I said, you know what? Join the meeting, join the calls we have right now with Volkswagen, with Audi, and I, throw out these names out there. So then he heard the millions that we're making, right? Just in a very short amount of time that he's watching us. In a few months, he's seeing the revenues go up. I'm sharing my revenues. So I'm sharing the whole bottom line. I'm sending him exactly how profitable we are. And then basically after a few months, he's like, I'd be stupid not to make this deal. And I said, I know it. Thank you very much.
Was he worth it?
He was. I mean, it was just, we blossomed. We learned a lot as a team. And it wasn't like it was perfect right from the get-go. I think he needed to learn how each of the operations worked with each of the other teams. And we, the operations team, our account team, our sales team, our campaigns team, our search team, all also had to learn how the development would actually play in terms of being able to scale the rest of our operations.
So then did he come in and build an engineering team that he led? Is that how he did it?
Exactly. So he built initially it was a small engineering team. And our thought was this engineering team was just going to be internal to us, right, at the end. So there were two things that had happened. We wanted him to be internal to us to build the platforms that we needed in order to scale the advertising, right? So how do we make 100 ads in 5 minutes versus, 50 hours, right? How do we produce all those assets?
And was that your goal from the start? Or did that sort of evolve as you saw what the platform could do?
Yeah, so it started evolving. And really what it was each of the team members were really frustrated with parts of their jobs, right? It was like, Diana, it's taking way too long to QC all these ads. We need something that actually allows us to QC in a streamlined process. Diana, we don't want to screenshot anymore. We want PDF filing basically where all of it is screenshot within seconds time. So as we're actually fixing all the different situations that each team member is having in terms of the operational part of what makes their job really not engaged for them or how difficult it was for them, that's when we would go to Noman's team and say, okay, there's 5 people on that team. They're all complaining about the same thing. I need you guys to enter this into that platform that you're building right now.
So you're doing internal research.
Yeah, so it was our internal research of our agency that basically told our tech team what to develop so that they could actually produce those things for what was challenging for the internal team.
You said there was some pain involved in being self-funded. What were you referring to?
This is where I feel like it's great when I come to events like this and everybody talks about, being the visionary and being such an incredible CEO and kind to your people and you're so compassionate and all the things that I think every CEO wants to do. But when you don't have any money and everybody has a problem, suddenly your compassion goes away. I mean, as much as I would like to say that there is a difference between a startup CEO and a mature company CEO. If somebody funded me, of course, I'd be like, oh, I have all the money in the world. Yes, you can take an extra vacation. Yes, you can, I'll pay for you to go out for another 2 weeks. These are all the things I want to do. Of course I want to do it. But I'm limited with the resources that I have. So that has been a very difficult journey, right?
I like to ask people what comes first. Does a great culture result in a successful company, or do you need a successful company to create the great culture you always wanted to have?
That question drives me nuts.
I'm a certified coach, right? So obviously I've done 360s. Of course I know actually how to do this, right? And I know what employment engagement is all about. But at the end, when you're the one that's on the line and you got to support a team of 60 and make sure payroll happens for everybody, you got to do what it takes. And it's sometimes not compassionate. I'm sorry. As compassionate as you want to be, sometimes you can't be 100% during that time. And so And I said this to my co-founder because he always pulls me back sometimes, and he's always the one that gets me grounded, is, and I hate to say it, but it's true, but everybody said Steve Jobs was a jerk, right? He had the most innovative company that was so successful, that had all the money in the world, but he was a jerk. And to me, I don't know if that was because he started Apple. That mentality of that founder is very different than one that actually is assigned by a board.
Yeah. How do you deal with retention in the company?
We do have, what we do is we do give out equity rights. And what that means is 80% of our company employees have equity rights to Constellation Agency. So if there's any type of buyout in the future, they would actually cash out as well with those equity rights.
Is the 80% based on their tenure or something like that?
No, we don't do it that way. We really, I make it pretty much performance-based, right?
Okay.
And
So it's a
really,
reward.
It is,
Okay.
it is. And really, how much that they're contributing into the company, that we all feel like we want to retain that A player, so that it has a lot to do with that. But I've learned a lot from that experience, and just recently, actually, to be honest. Because to me, I'm so passionate about, our company, right? And I live, breathe, and sleep Constellation. And it's probably a sickness, but it is who I am. And so when people have left me in the past, I was really insulted. I mean, you have
Sure.
my
Take it
co-founder-
personally.
I took it personally.
Is Vinny still with you?
So Vinny is not. He was always just a consultant, but Noman is still with me, yeah. What I find interesting is somebody said to me recently, Diana, this is just their job to them. Don't you understand that? This is just a job. They're not even thinking about the equity rights. They don't know when you're going to sell. At the end, this is a job, and you need to actually make it engaging for them enough to stay. And I'm like, I buy them food Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have all the medical benefits there are. We have city bikes. We have metro passes. We buy $800 worth of Amazon food each week. I put in a bevy machine with sparkling water. What more do I have to do? And they're saying you just have to keep coming up with ways to engage each employee. And it's going to be different from each person's perspective. So it's something that I'm still trying to figure out.
Can you relate to that, Karen?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I would say it's they want to leave at the end of the day feeling valued. And so finding a way to do that is going to be what you're describing, which is give them interesting work, give them clarity of what that job is, and then, it sort of starts snowballing from there.
We don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to cover a couple of things before we let you go. One is it's such a technical product, and a lot of people don't get involved in this aspect of marketing. Could you give us an example of a typical client and kind of walk us through how they use your program? Do you have to be a large company to do this, or are those large companies doing a local version of this that would be affordable to smaller companies as well?
Yes, so it can be localized and it can be much smaller. As I said before, we made a self-serve platform. You can do it yourself, and realize there's people out there, they don't want to do it themselves. So we have what's called managed services. We can do it all for you, or you can do it yourself. So if you have a marketing team that's already in-house and you already have 120 people, then basically they would go onto the platform and they would just basically say, I want search banners, I want social banners, I want display banners, I want Facebook ads, I want website banners, and they'd be able to produce all those assets within minutes' time, and they would be pre-templated. So how it works with the bigger manufacturers is they want the branding, right? So their biggest concern is if you have so many advertisers out there advertising for all separate locations of our brand, then it's brand compliance is a mess, right? Because every agency is going to use their own interpretation of the brand guidelines. If they even use the brand guidelines, sometimes they don't. Every font is different. The designer does it different. The colors are different. Now it's not consistent at all. It's like looking at a McDonald's ad, you know that it's McDonald's, whether you're in Houston, you're in China,
Right.
you're in Japan, you know it's a McDonald's ad. But if you don't have that brand consistency, now you lose brand identity. And so what we're saying is we can keep it brand compliant, but allow you to localize that ad based on the location of where you are. So if you want to make it in Chinese and Hindi, if you want to put an offer, I want to offer $100 for this product just for my location, now you can do all of that and still have that brand consistency.
Do you have competition now?
There's nobody that's doing it in this space.
Wow.
I mean, literally nobody. And I have had big giants call me up and said, we have all the data in the world. We can now target a woman in a blue dress at 2:00 in the afternoon in Central Park, right? You have all the data in the world. But where's the creative to go along with that? That's why they needed us to actually produce the creative assets for the data that's actually out there.
So we're having this conversation at EY's annual Strategic Growth Forum. You're here because you're part of the latest class of Winning Women. Can you give us some sense of what it's meant to you?
Oh my gosh, it means everything to me that EY has picked us to be a part of this event and to be a part of 2019 Winning Women. I didn't realize what it was exactly, but the most interesting thing I found in this entire experience is I've lost some friends in this journey, in the last 3.5 years. And it's not even the last 3.5 years, because I've always been really fiercely ambitious, right? And I've always had this fire in me, right? And now it even burns bigger, and it's much bigger. And so most women couldn't understand me. And I think my friends have always sort of questioned my ambition, right? Like, is it really worth sacrificing everything else? You're not even showing up to our friends' events right now because you're putting the job always ahead of a lot of things. And here I was in the 2019 Winning Women conference with all the women that were chosen this year. And I'm hearing the same craziness coming out of their mouth that has been coming out of mine. And I'm looking at them and I go, oh my gosh, we're so similar, right? Like, we're twinning today, because all of a sudden I'm in a room full of women that sound just like me. As you get bigger and bigger, I could see how lonely that life could be, because you no longer can express all your thoughts and feelings and your stress. One, you can't do it with your employees. You can't do it with people within your own company. And then my friends, I couldn't do it with them. My husband's fantastic. I do, rely on him, and he's been super supportive. But at the end, there's not a lot of people out there that can understand. And to have a room full of women now, alumni, and people not only understand me, but they are who I am inside, that's an incredible journey to go together with, and a tribe. I mean, EY has created a tribe for me.
It's awesome.
Diana Lee, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and share your story.
It's an amazing experience.
Michelle Vondrasek, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us about Vaughn Technologies. What does the company do?
Well, we're actually in such an exciting space right now. Vaughn Technologies started out as a deployment company and now really specializes in network infrastructure and wireless. And that's a space right now that's pretty exciting. A lot of unique technology that's touching Wi-Fi like never before.
Tell us what you're doing specifically.
One of the reasons that we started Vaughn Technologies was because there was a gap in a services company that was focused more on the solutions for a customer. You have your carriers, you have your VARs, and they have their purpose, and that business drives circuits if you're a carrier, equipment if you're a VAR. But there wasn't anybody really focusing on being agnostic and giving them a solution that was right for them. So that's where we came in, thought we could do it a lot better than the way it was being done there, really focusing on the customer's needs. Becoming experts and advising them. They want to run their business. But networks, Wi-Fi, very critical to a business. And now it's so exciting. Look at what's happening with technology on Wi-Fi.
I don't know what you're referring to. What is happening?
Well, think about if you go into even a restaurant today, it's expected to have Wi-Fi, right? I mean, everybody wants to log on. They want to be in touch.
These restaurants are turning to Wi-Fi to
satisfy their customers. And it's going a step further because now you can start collecting information and kind of understanding the foot traffic through Wi-Fi of where your customers are coming in, where they're dwelling, where they're spending their time. Do I need more staff based on how many people are showing up at what times? Understanding how often they come, being able to ask them to log in and learn a little bit more about them and be able to send them messaging, couponing that's really relevant to who they are.
The restaurant chain is where it gets really compelling, right? So if one restaurant knows you've been there and then you're going to go to another one and another one, they can use that intelligence from the Wi-Fi to better serve you in the next location. Is that right?
Absolutely. And especially have multiple brands. You can really understand what locations they're going to, what foods they like, how far they're coming from.
And might you serve them a discount code to get them to come in if they're walking by? Can you do that?
Do you need to give somebody a discount if they show up every week? Are you really trying to transition that infrequent user that shows up once a month and try to get them to come one more time a month? That's going to increase your revenue.
But can you reach them when they're not in the restaurant, if they're not on your Wi-Fi at that moment?
Well, once they've logged in and you've captured that information, you know who they are. Okay. I mean, you can even get it down if they're logging into through certain social medias, sharing who they are, allowing you to see who they are. And your responsibility is to give them relevant content, nothing annoying.
I think it's important that you said that, is that there's a responsibility on either side.
Absolutely.
In terms of the data that you're talking about collecting, obviously everyone's aware that data is being collected when you go to a website.
It's a social exchange these days. They understand.
But I don't think of it, this is my lack of expertise, but I don't think of that happening just signing in on Wi-Fi. But you're telling me the same thing happens if I go into Starbucks.
You accept the terms.
I'm saying not everybody has embraced the technology. A lot of the larger corporations surely have figured out that they want to understand who their guests are. They want to make good decisions about the future menus that they have, who the next generation is going to be coming into their stores.
And they can do that without having people go to their website. They can do it through customers showing up.
That's right.
Getting on the
and
website.
getting
so
on
what
the
they
Wi-Fi.
need to do is give customers an incentive to get on
and
the
a great
Wi-Fi.
experience. If you want somebody to get on your Wi-Fi, you better make sure it's stable. There's a lot of things that people are doing on Wi-Fi that, without the right network, it's not going to be a good experience, and they're not going to go back.
Who else is doing this? I'm sure it's not just restaurants that you're working with. What other types?
Well, I think anybody that's got customer service, customer hospitalities, it really
a mall
applies.
as a great example.
A mall is a great example where you have people coming, any kind of brick and mortar. It applies to auto industries. Where are people going out on my lots and hovering? Oh, they're here in the trucks. They didn't buy though, so maybe and hang out at the auto store or the auto shops a lot.
It never would have occurred to me
Wi-Fi.
to sign into Wi-Fi at an auto dealer. What's the incentive? Why do I do it?
Perhaps you want to go ahead and learn more about the car. You can log on their website or log on their Wi-Fi and get more information.
Maybe
maybe
they
a
even have a
video.
QR code that would have prompted you to do it, right?
Absolutely. Not to mention the kids are sitting there waiting for mom and dad all day long as they stroll around. Here, kid, here's my phone. Get on the Wi-Fi.
How did you get into this business?
I actually call it an entrepreneurial seizure. I was really lucky when I got into IT services. I had a great mentor back in the 90s, and he taught me that if you were good to your customers, if you were honest, if you were really trying to solve problems for them, you would be successful. And they were a great company and in line with, sort of how my parents raised me. But then they got acquired, and there was some differences in the new company that just wasn't in line with.
What were you doing in that company?
I was running a sales team for them. So, I waited about a year for things to get better, and they doubled down on what I thought was bad. So, I left the company, I think, within a month.
When was this?
2006 and December, and then started Bond Technologies January 1st. Not a lot of time to think about a name, so it's not real creative.
What was the opportunity you saw? Obviously, a lot has changed since 2006.
Well, the company that I work for, like I said, they really let us build sort of our own P&L. We saw a niche out there for services to help companies build networks. It was getting more complex. They didn't have the in-house resources. They needed somebody that they trusted, not just somebody who was wanting to sell them equipment that was going to get them a rebate at the end of the year, but a real service that was, more purpose-based, kind of like being a mechanic. I hate taking my car in. They tell me I need $500 worth of stuff, and I don't know better. I kind of wanted to be the mechanic for Wi-Fi and be right with the customer, be honest with them, and be fair.
Did you know what an important element data would be at that point?
I did not. I mean, we started the company right before the iPhone, and it's been an amazing evolution for our company, for the industry. I look at, Wi-Fi before and what it meant. Hey, I just want to connect. I want to send an email. Now I want to watch a movie. I want to send updates to labels on a shelf for a 2-hour flash only on the rows that are athletic shoes. That's over Wi-Fi. I want to allow frictionless payment so nobody has to go to a register. Oh, by the way, my point of sale systems, they're on Wi-Fi.
So how did you innovate over these years to get to where you are now? Did you have a vision, or did you change it every day,
Well,
every week?
When you're augmenting those carriers and VARs and the OEMs, we built partnerships and really were at the forefront of what cutting edge technology was needing to be installed. We're a smaller company. We have awesome engineers, and we could learn that quicker than some of these companies could cascade out to their organization.
How big are you?
We're big.
How many? Tell us how many employees.
We have about 80 engineers and a couple of hundred what we call techs, smart hands across the country. So, but we'll be a lot bigger. There's so many things that we're doing now, which is exciting because not only are we developing these awesome Wi-Fi networks, we've made some great partnerships with some software analytic companies to be able to build analytic solutions. With some OEMs that have some great IoT devices that we can leverage in a lot of different data points to build some pretty interesting information and solutions for our customers.
How have you financed your growth?
We have bootstrapped this 100% ourselves.
Wow.
Okay.
It's been exciting.
Impressive. Have you wavered on that at all? Have there been moments when you thought we need to bring in additional money?
We're absolutely there right now. Interesting that you should ask. We've kind of built this awesome machine, and we'd love to bring somebody in to put some gas in it so we can really scale it and grow double, triple.
Because you think the opportunities are greater right now than they ever have been?
Opportunities are greater. We moved not just from a service company, but built our own managed service platform to be able to monitor and manage the networks that we're building and all this technology that's connecting. That's really important that it's constantly running. You were in the session earlier with Chuck Robbins from Cisco talking about, we don't even know what's going to be connecting to our networks in the future.
Yeah.
So it's been evolving. It's fun to see that, to work, meet people like the entrepreneurs here that are making cool products that we can incorporate into our ecosystem and sell to our customers to solve for some of these business needs they have.
You're here at the EY Strategic Growth Forum in part, obviously, because you've been a member of the Winning Women program. I think you were in the class of
2015.
Are you here this year specifically because you are thinking about the potential of taking on an investor?
I come every year for so many reasons. Certainly the conversations around investing is been a high percentage this year. But the conversations to just understand these new companies that are existing, how they were created, what are their challenges or where are they heading, especially around from the technology perspective. Some of the solutions we've developed and partnered have been because of conversations with new companies that are going in a unique direction and want somebody to help develop solutions for them.
Karen, you've been through the process of talking to investors. Do you have any thoughts, lessons learned, warnings, cautions for
It's
Michelle?
a lot of work. It's a lot more work than I could ever have imagined.
I would have to agree with her.
It's sort of a theme lately of all the, in some of the talks I've heard as well, of all the preparation time that goes into just being ready to even have a conversation with an investor. And I think that's time that I have never heard anyone be warned about, but it's really, has a big impact on the company for sure.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've met some wonderful women through the EY program back in Chicago who has done this a lot, who's giving me guidance, really assisting me through the process and making it less intimidating and less overwhelming because it can be. And it seems to be getting easier and easier to have these conversations and really understand my value. And go, wow, I'm getting people excited. And it's kind of turned the tables. And I'm so grateful for that.
For you, is it mostly about getting the capital that'll allow you to grow, or are you looking for a strategic partner that might be able to open doors or take you places you haven't been yet?
Yeah, I mean, I really want that money to come with a strategic partner that has done it before, can give some guidance. I think our team has all the capability in the world, but we're looking to double, triple over the next few years, and would never turn away anybody who's done it before and says, I think I know a few things that can help you.
Do you have competitors?
What I've found is there are folks that are good at designing and engineering things, and they're usually with the big corporations. They charge a lot of money. And a lot of them outsource that work to us. That's who our customers are, and they leverage our capabilities and expertise. They know they can't be great at everything. They're trying to get product offerings out the door for themselves, and they go to third parties who can help them develop those wrapped offerings. And then there are companies that just manage networks. We do both. So we really have kind of formed a company that's in a space that there's not a lot of us in there. We have a nationwide footprint.
How do you find your employees?
We have our own in-house recruiting. It's a tight market. It really is. And I think we've done a great job in grooming and building our workforce.
Employees that stay for a while?
That stays for a long time.
Good.
Yeah, and gives them a career path. They get to see a lot of cool technology. I mean, they do a lot of travel, but they're not sitting at the same environment every day, just maintaining it, tweaking here and there. They're seeing new technology, a lot of proof of concepts that we work with, and it's exciting to them. So yeah, it's been fun.
That's great. What are you doing, or what do you think works well to keep your culture?
I think what works well is we have a fantastic onboarding process and a great diligence when we hire people. We hire and we literally go through our values and talk to them and ask them to give us examples of how that applied to them. And because in our industry, it is very competitive for these resources.
When you say our industry, you mean IT?
In IT, in technology, in engineering. It's very tight out there right now.
Sure.
So having that small family feel and that flexibility for them, I've always had an open door policy. Our leadership has. And when you can call and say, look, I need some time off for some family issues, and there are no repercussions and things can be made, or a call gets made in the middle of the night because somebody was in an accident and they need help with the insurance. I don't know, they can't get through. That's why people want to come work for us, to maintain that small family feel, even as we grow, that we do care about them. And we try to hire people that are of like minds with us.
Do you worry at all about the impact on your culture of bringing in an outside investor who might point you in a different direction?
Absolutely. But I'm more excited about the ideas they can bring to us. You know, there's always going to be that risk, and I'm trying, and that's why, to Karen's point, it's a long process because you do want to get to know these people. You kind of want to understand who they are. They're your next husband. So at least for 3 years, 5 years, whatever the plan might look like. So yeah, I think it's a little concerning, but if you go through the right process, and I think the reward is bigger. You know, I've always said I'd rather be 75% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. So.
Amen.
Do you feel you're in an industry where you have to grow?
Well, I feel like I just spent 13 years getting us to a position for that growth. Building out a company that had a great reputation, that became experts.
Would you even have the option, though, of saying, you know what, we've been pretty darn successful. I'm comfortable with my life as it is, and I don't need to take on an outside investor. I want to just keep going the way things are.
No, because
Talking to a former Olympic swimmer.
Trials.
I think ambition is...
No, I think that I see the potential of where it could grow because of the effort that our company and the people that work at Vaughn have put in the last 13 years to build a reputation, to build a product. This is what we've worked for.
To get to this point.
To get to this point, to really scale. Do I want to
There's
stop?
risk involved
Do I
in
want to
that.
stop at the 90-yard line? I'd rather see it get kicked across the goal line.
Karen, what was your point with the Olympic swimmer? Do you
Well,
think?
I think there's a lot of ambition that is driving Michelle and people like her.
And people like you?
Right, and it's not as straightforward as saying like, "Oh, I'm not going to grow. I'm happy." It's not. It sort of doesn't even go there. It's not a question of.
Well, I didn't mean to imply that either. I didn't mean to suggest, I don't want to grow, but there are trade-offs, and in some cases you can say, I'm happy to grow organically. I like being my own boss. I don't want to bring in.
But sometimes I think it's hard to not grow, for starters, and so if you can do it better with a little bit of infusion, because as we talked about, earlier today, you can't always do all the things you want or know you should do if you're cash strapped. And I think when you're growing, you're always investing in the company, and so therefore you don't have a pile of money sitting around to be able to pay your employees bonuses, for example, when you know you should.
Especially when you're funding it yourself. Right. There's not a pot of gold just sitting here that I'll take a little bit more out of there.
Yeah, or you want to raise, here you go. It's
it cost a lot to get where we are.
Also, I think it really depends on the industry. There may be some industries where you can say, I want to just continue to grow organically. But in certain industries, and yours might be one of them, if you rein it in, someone else is going to come along and do it, and you may not even be able to maintain what you have if you haven't continued to invest and expand.
Absolutely.
Well, and you look at, I'm sure you experience with having such sought after employees that the raises are a real thing and they're constant. And so how do you keep up with that?
How do you keep up with that?
As you grow?
You have to acknowledge it. You really do. And you have to, unfortunately, build that into to the customer when, we've never claimed to be the cheapest out there. We never will be. But when people do analysis on quotes versus cost of ownership and what it's delivered at, we win all the time. So we try not to really go in price wars. We try to discuss what you're going to get for what you're paying, and the customer recognize the value of that.
So have you met someone here who you think might be the person who
the next
answers
husband?
your need? Yes, the next husband.
Oh gosh, yeah. There's so many conversations I've had here. Yeah, it's really exciting. Actually, conversations that I didn't expect, interest that I didn't anticipate from people that didn't even consider. So yeah, it's been really exciting.
Great. Michelle Vondrasek, congratulations, and thanks
Thank
so much
you
for joining us.
I
and
appreciate
sharing your
it.
story.
I really do. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening, everybody. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Remember, if you liked what you heard, tell your friends, tell your enemies, subscribe, like us, and best of all, connect with us. Follow us on Twitter at 21_hats and visit us at 21hats.com. Let us know what questions or issues you'd like to hear our panel of fearless business owners address. See you next time.